Okay, guys, we're back. Here we are on South Padre Island, marker 12 for the sea turtles here. What we're going to do is we're going to go to the wind tidal flats of South Padre Island. Well, between South Padre Island and the sand flats. That's what we're going to do. I had a subscriber mention in one of the comments in one of the videos, previous videos, about the area of Los Bancos and Medio. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to walk out there and we're going to take a look at them. It's on a low tide day. It's going to be low tide all day long. So I geared up with my wading gear just in case, and I took a pole just in case if we see anything. I'm not planning on seeing anything, but you never know. But we're going to take a look at this. So back when I was young, I used to wade fish everywhere, and we used to go all over the place and try here, try there, and because I didn't have a boat, so that's why we were relegated to wade fishing off the bank. And so I hadn't been out here in a long time, so we're gonna go take a look at this and take a look. So we're getting up on here. Let's take a look at this grass. Beautiful. Look at that. Padre Island. So just a little FYI here. I've never really had an issue. I've never had an issue. I've only come in contact with a rattlesnake one time in my life, and I blew his head off with a 30-30 because he tried to sneak up on me on the side of my truck. But other than that, I've been out in this grass more times than I can count. Just, you just got to be aware. Snakes are there. And just be aware. Look before you step. If you start to hear a rattle, you need to freeze, back off, and so on. But generally, I've never had a problem. I've traipsed many grass like this because there's rattlesnakes at Boca Chica Beach in the dunes, and there's rattlesnakes here in the dunes at Padre Island, along with deer, along with coyotes, and all sorts of other kind of varmints and stuff. They're there. It's their natural habitat. So just kind of be aware, especially in tall grass. And you want to not walk through stuff where stuff is really piled up. Like you see where it's been washed ashore and it piles together in a big pile. You definitely want to stay away from stuff like that and walk around it and not try to walk across it or through it, because there may be a snake in there or not, But anyway, we're going to take a look at this. We're just going to go out here for a walk. We're going to take a walk, and we're going to walk this tidal flat, this wind tidal flat. The wind tidal flats go back a long way. So Padre Island, there's a survey that was done back in '79 on the wind tidal flats of Deer Island and of Los Bancos and Medio. So and the gentlemen gathered together. I'm going to highlight it in the notes so you guys can go to the website where it's at, so you can, if you want to read the whole thing. But he gathered data all the way back to the mid 1800s, I think, of geological surveys that were being done. And he put all that together and then put his own spin on this. So what they basically dated is that South Padre Island is 4,500 to 5,000 years old. That's how long ago that it formed here. On average about 4,500 years. Some push it to 5,000, but pretty much 4,500 years old. And it was formed out just pretty much like how you see it today, that there hasn't really relatively been much change to the actual island itself, and in that span of time, there has been change to the lower Laguna Madre, all the sand deposits and stuff that come off of the island over this period of time. And then, of course, the change when the Army Corps of Engineers dug that channel through to connect the lower and upper Laguna Madre, because at one time it used to be just the Laguna Madre is what it used to be, and I'm sure some major hurricane that's an unrecorded hurricane came long before they started recording hurricanes came through this area and closed off the upper from the lower and pushed all that sand and mud, washed it ashore. So can you imagine a hurricane doing that? So think about that. What category of hurricane force can do that, man? That's more than a category 5 that we know as being the most, which is 200-mile-an-hour winds, like the one that just hit Jamaica. Category 5. But one that can just push so much sand and so much mud and just fill an entire section of the Laguna Madre and close the upper half off from the lower half. That is some terrifying power right there. But I'm sure it's one that's been unrecorded. It happened centuries ago that did that. And that's how you ended up with it being landlocked. Until in the 40s, the Army Corps of Engineers came along and they dug the channel, which as the Intercoastal Waterway, through there to connect the two. So what I'm saying is and just like in the study, it shows that we live in a hypersaline environment down here, that even when it was formed early on, it was a hypersaline environment. So it's always been hypersaline. There hadn't been a time that it hasn't been, but it's always been that way. That's one thing that he was pointing out in his thesis that he was writing on this survey. Because most places don't have the salt issues that we have. You go to Florida, they don't have the salt issues like we have. Anywhere up and down the East Coast. Heck, even I want to even say, even you go up to Houston, like Kenma and all those places there, I don't think they have the salt issues that we have down here. We have really high salt content, and how can I put this? That back in the day when I don't know if they still do, but I know back in the day, like when Southwestern Bell was still around, they used to test their phone systems in South Padre Island before they rolled it out to everywhere else that they had phone lines, because the corrosion is just so bad to see how long that it lasts. It's always been a test place. If you ever wondered, like, I'll give you an example of how much salt there is. Our native palms. I used to work in the nursery industry. I used to work for Stewart Place Nursery way back in the day, back in the 90s. And the native palm here is the Sabo texana. That's the only native palm. All the other palms that you see that are here in the valley planted everywhere are introduced. They were brought in and planted. They're not native. There's only one native palm, and it's Sabo texana, and then it's brother sister palm Sabo mexicana, which could be crossed over with birds eating the seed and coming over and dumping them here, and then they're growing, and then they pollinate and they cross. But most of them, when they do the genetics, you're going to see that most of them are Texanas. The Mexicanas have a little bit bigger, thicker trunk than the Texanas. But what you're going to see. So that's our native palm. You go to Brownsville, they got the Sabal Conservatory down there, the sanctuary, where that's how all the valley used to look along the river when the conquistadors came sailing up the Rio Grande River. You got to remember, the Rio Grande River that you see today isn't the Rio Grande River that the Spanish saw when they came up in their galleons. There was a lot more water because there's two big dams. You got Falcon Dam and you got Lake Amistad Dam that dams up all the water. Well, back then the river was a lot bigger and a lot deeper than what it is today. So when they came up, they called it, what did they call it? Palmas de los Valley, or Valley of the Palms. That's what they called it when they came up the Rio Grande River. And that's basically the Brownsville area, There used to be tons of sable palms littered all up and down the banks there. And you go over there today, there's only that one little spot where the preserve is. Because why? Because people have dug them and planted them elsewhere. That's why. The sabal palms is a high valued palm because it can take the cold. It can take super hard freezes and survive. So people pay good money, and you'll see them get moved up to, Houston, Dallas, Las Vegas, places like that, to where the temperatures really drop at night. They want a palm that's hardy, because a lot of palms are tropical, and they're not cold hardy. But the sabal palm is a subtropical palm, meaning that it can grow in the tropics and it can grow in the semi-cold. I mean, it can't grow where it snows. Of course, it's going to freeze and die. But it can grow where it freezes a lot, you know. And that's why you see that. And windmill palms would be another one, what they call monkey palms. Those are another one that are real cold hardy, but they don't get nowhere near as big as a sabal. Sabal takes forever and a day to grow. Any big palms that you see down or around here in the valley, though, if they're huge and they're sabals, not Washingtonias. I'm not talking Washingtonias, Robustas or Foliferas. I'm not talking those. Those have all been introduced from the Folifera is native to California. The Robusta is native to Baja California down in Mexico. So those both come from the West Coast. And the one that does the best on the island by far is the Robusta, the tall, skinny one that gets, 60, 70 feet tall. That's the one that can handle the salt down there. You just look at our sabals. Stewart Place Nursery planted all the sabals up and down South Padre Island Drive there. And in those little island areas as you come off the bridge, that was all done by Stewart Place Nursery. And then you go up north where the Frankie Plaza Group is, north of all the condos and all the hotels, where they're building those townhomes and all that stuff on both sides of the road. And you see how they line sabal palms. All those palms were planted by Stewart Place Nursery. They came out of a field down there on Southmost in Brownsville that they were going to develop to build armadillo homes in. And so the whole field was cleared, and that's where they were moved and planted. They were planted there, and they were planted at the IBC banks all up and down the valley. But just what I'm trying to tell you is, look at those palms. They're native to this area, but look how bad it's got the salt burn on the end of the fronds. They burn them really heavy. That's just what I'm trying to point out, that's the how the salt doesn't leach out down here. We have such a hypersaline environment here on the Lower Laguna Madre and South Padre Island that it doesn't leach out, and you're kind of limited to what you can plant. It's not like you go to Florida and you see palms that grow all the way down to the water, to the ocean, on the beach. You notice there are no palms down on the beach here. Well, there's a reason for it, because the salt kills it. It doesn't leach out. We don't get enough annual rainfall a year to leach the salt out of the root line of the palm trees. And that's why you don't see them planted all the way down to the water, because they just won't survive. I mean, even look at coconut palms. They struggle down here to survive. And you look at how many tropical island pictures you see where they're right up to the waterline at any other place, and they're thriving and doing fine. Well, they don't thrive down here, I'll tell you that. The Phoenix, Canary Island Phoenix palm, Dactylifera palm, Phoenix, all those ones that supposedly take salt and thrive in sandy conditions, that thrive out in the desert where it's sand, they just don't take the salt down here. They struggle. There's a few of them planted, but you see that they don't really do anything, and they don't really turn into anything because they're struggling with the salinity that we have that never gets leached out. So that's where these flats come into play. So I'm just trying to lay the groundwork on what we're dealing with here. We have a hypersaline environment on the Lower Laguna Madre. It's in the water, it's in the land down there, and it never leaches out. So for fauna and stuff to grow, it's pretty amazing that it has to adapt, and very few can adapt and do those things. I mean, if you always wondered when you go down to the island why the landscaping doesn't look that great, that it's and it's bare minimum, you can count it on your hand what plants that they use, because those are the only plants that survive down there in the salinity. There's a reason for it. That's why it doesn't have that big extravagant, like you go to Hawaii. I mean, the landscaping's incredible, just the natural landscaping, you know, that grows right down to the water. They don't have that issue because they have plenty of rain. It rains just about every day there. That leaches out the salt along the root line, and the plant survives and dries and does really well. And plus, it's in volcanic ash is what it's also planted in, whereas we don't have that here. We just have just the sand. But anyway, so this is what they're saying is these tidal wind flats go back. So once Padre Island was formed, the tidal wind flats started to form with these. So you can't see it. I'm going to head to Bancos, Los Bancos de Medio is what I'm heading to. And it's way out there in front of me. You can't see it, but it's there. And to the left is going to be Deer Island, but I'm not going to Deer Island. I'm going to the banks. And because the subscriber had asked about that. This is where I'd broken down the last time that I was out on my boat. But I was on the west side, not the east side. We're coming from the east, from the Padre Island side. So how the Lower Laguna Madre is set up, I don't know if I've ever made this clear, because I always talk about grass flats, mud flats, sand flats, and I always say that the sand flats are on the Padre Island side. That's kind of misleading, because you have mud flats on both sides, and the sand flats are out in the middle of that, because the sand is deposited from the island when the wind blows out of the southeast, and it's deposited in the middle of the Lower Laguna Madre. That's really how it is. If you ever look at a satellite, you'll see there's a big brown section that runs through there, and that's all the sand that's forming sandbars, that the sand that's blown off Padre Island, and it gets deposited in Lower Laguna Madre. And you do have some sediment from the Arroyo Colorado too, ends up out there also in some of these. So what's pretty interesting is in this survey, what they found, they did core samples of all these islands, and the only one that didn't have sediment from the Arroyo Colorado is Deer Island. Deer Island was the only one. So that's saying that Deer Island was there long before Los Bancos and Medio were formed. So it's older. It's older than these other banks, than these other little island chains. So here we are now. Wind's blowing 40 miles an hour. I went out, and as you can see, it's a mud flat. And there's no grass. What you see there is algae and fungi forming off of the bottom. Because at times there's no water here. At times it's high and dry, and then water comes in and it stays for a while, and then it goes out. And it just all depends on how the water level rises, other than being low tide, because right now it's low tide and it still has water on it. So that's just what I'm trying to say, is that the water depth of the water does change from time to time. But at one time, since it has that there was no water there at one time. It was high and dry. So I didn't find any grass forming out here anywhere as I walked it. And I don't know if I told you, but it's a 2.5 mile walk from the island to the banks there that we're going to Los Bancos de Medio. 2.5 miles, guys. So it's 2.5 miles over, 2.5 miles back. So 5 miles I walked to get to this. Back in the day when I was young buck, I used to walk 10 miles a day. I used to ride my bike 20 miles a day. I was very physically active. I mean, I'm 59 now. I'm a lot older. I'm not an old man yet, but I'm getting there. And it's a test for me to see if I could still do this physically, and I did, no problem. So I'm not as out of shape as I thought I was. I thought I was pretty out of shape because I haven't worked out in a long time. But I was able to take this and do this. So I just happened to pick the time. What I wanted to do was, originally my plan was to come out here and show you guys this, do the walk. You can see the islands are in front of me way off on the horizon there. You can barely see them sticking up on the horizon. The one to the far left, the big one, that's Deer Island, and the rest of them are the banks of Medio, which I want to go to because that's what the subscriber was asking about. But as you can see, there is nothing there to keep the redfish there to stay around and hang, hide in the grass, to ambush bait fish. The only reason why a redfish would be up in this area is to be after crustaceans, to be after sand crabs, fiddler crabs, those little rock crabs that burrow down into the sand and into the mud and make their homes there. That would be the only reason why you would catch them up in this area, to be doing something like that. They wouldn't be hanging here trying to, you know, get bait fish. It's just not, there's not enough structure. That's what I'm trying to say. So if you're going to wade fish this, you got to go a long ways. You got to go a couple of miles or more to even get to where you're going to even be able to catch anything if you're going to try to do this. I geared up. I took my gear with me. I took a pole with me because, like I say, man, it's better to have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, just in case if I saw something. But I wasn't anticipating that there was going to be anything, and which I was right. There wasn't anything at all, other than a few birds here and there. But the cold front blew in early on me. It wasn't supposed to come in until like 2 o'clock that afternoon, and shoot, it showed up around 9:30 in the morning, man. Because my plan, like I said, I wanted to go out there and get to the island, and then I was going to fly my drone over those islands and give you guys a good aerial view of that area so you can see what it looks like. Because not too many people have seen this. As you can see in the video, there is no scar marks in the floor anywhere here of boats coming through here from the prop. There's no prop marks anywhere. So I ought to show you, nobody comes out here in a boat. They don't come out here. Maybe people walking across there, and then when it's dry, riding their ATV across there. Because I did see some ATV marks, so that's telling me it was dry at one time. And they rode around out there. But other than that, no, look at that. Beautiful. The water is about, it started off about shin deep, and then it went to ankle deep pretty much all the way, and then less than ankle deep once I got closer to the islands. Because, of course, it's a low tide. And it's beautiful. Like I say, guys, you don't know how lucky we are to have this beautiful natural resource out here to enjoy this. And that study that I read, it was pretty interesting. So I figured it's time to make a video on this. Walk out there so you guys could see the area, see what it looks like. Because you hear people talking about it, but on the camera, let me get it on camera so you can see it. Most of the places in that area are unfishable. They're just not fishable. You got to go past that. You got to walk way past that and get into the sand flats and then into the grass flats to really hit on reds. Now, it may be a little bit different north of that in that area off of the island, but straight out here to come to the banks here, it's as you can see, there's nothing there that will retain fish. They may swim through there at a high tide and be looking for crustaceans, but like I say, in the fish's mind, I don't know how that actually works. Because, you know, like, hey, we're feeding on mullet today, we're feeding on shad, and then all of a sudden they think like, oh, you know what, man, it's high tide. Let's head up back in here into these wind flats, and let's go eat some crab. You know what I mean? I don't know how that process works in a fish's mind. I just don't know how it works. But they do come in here, and it's very limited time. They come in to eat, and then they go back out. And it's all due upon the tide. So you'd have to just time it just right. And it's a big area to cover to try to see them, because you got to remember, this is super clear water. Look how clear that water is. And you could scare them real fast. So if you do come across them, it's a big area to gamble on to try to come out here and fish it, because it's just so vast. And you got, your timing has to be right, that the fish would be thinking, hey, let's go up into this wind tidal flat and let's go eat some crabs. And you just happen to time it just right to catch them out there when they're doing that. That is that's hard to do. Let me tell you, you would, that's 1,000,000 in one shot right there. Let me tell you, because I didn't see any fish, period. The whole 2.5 mile walk out there and the whole 2.5 mile walk back. I saw birds here and there, and they were eating off those algae and little water bugs, and probably getting some of those little crabs themselves. But other than that, you know, I think I saw one little bitty bait fish, and I couldn't tell what it was because it was so small. One. But it was worth the effort. It was worth coming out here to take a look, because I want to get this on tape. Like I say, get it on video, because this is educational for us that fish the lower Laguna Madre. So we can see areas like this and learn about the history of our area. So this wind tidal flat has been there for thousands of years. It started forming, from what I read, 300 years past the making of Padre Island. So it serves a purpose for collecting sand. So sand, and that's why these islands had formed. And then there's fauna on these islands. So look, now that you see the big island that's to the left top part of the screen, that's Deer Island. It was actually closer. I probably should have went to that, but my whole deal was to go to the Medio Islands, because a subscriber had asked if I had ever fished those. I fished them off of the west side in the sand flats, on the sand flat side. So you see that mark right there? That looks like somebody came out here on a motorcycle. First, I thought it was a prop scar, but it's not. It's like a big, thick-wheeled motorcycle, because then there are ATV tracks here too. That are right parallel alongside it here. Look, I'm going to walk a little bit more, and then there's ATV tracks. So at one time, I guess I cut it off, but there was ATV tracks there. So at one time, there was dry, and somebody had come out there when the mud was still wet and rolled around in an ATV and a motorcycle. So here we are now. It's less than ankle deep. We're getting close. You can see the islands off in the distance. I saw this marker sign, so I walked over to this marker sign, and I stood it back up. I don't know what it's for, but it's been blown over. It's got a reflective white tape on it, but it's pretty old. It's been out there a long time. Somebody marked it for some reason. I don't know why. But the big island to the left is Deer Island, and then all the little island chains that you see that are north of that, going to the right of the screen, that's Los Bancos de en Medio. So we're going to set this guy back up. And then when I look at it, I can see, because look at the barnacles. Look how high they come up on it. So at one time, the water's been pretty high there. Look at the barnacles. Look how high the barnacles are on it. Well, the back, you're not gonna be able to really tell, because it was laying in the water. So that's at least 2 feet, it's come up. So that's interesting. So I'm not sure what it's for. It's just out there in the middle of nowhere. It's a marker. Somebody put it there with a reflective tape on it, and there's no structure there that you would run over that you don't want to hit. And the key out here to walk in this is, you have to remember, this is like walking on ice with no ice skates. That's the experience that you get here. You can slip and fall real quick and real easy. It's so slippery. So you don't walk like you normally walk. You slide your feet. So it's a shuffle. You're shuffling your feet, and you're shuffling across there is how you're doing it. So here we are. We're getting close. There is the middle island of Los Bancos in Medio. So I chose the middle island to go to. And like I said, the original plan was to get there and then fly my drone up from there and then fly it around the whole island chain in that area so I could get you guys a really good aerial view of that area. But the wind was already blowing 40 miles an hour by the time I got there, so I wasn't going to put my drone up. That would be a bad mistake because it's a little mini drone and it would yeah, I didn't want to lose it. It's paid a lot of money for it and I didn't want to lose it. So that's got to be for another time. We'll have to do it for another time. But yeah, I'm just sliding my feet there. That's all I'm doing. Sliding them forward to stay balanced. And plus it's not helping because the wind's blowing 40 miles an hour. But I want to show you guys how the tide goes out. The tide was still running pretty fastly going out. It was going to drain that whole area there because you see how there's hardly any water left? It drains the whole area around these island chains to where you can walk across and there's no water. I mean, it wasn't quite there yet, but it was pretty darn close when I went out there, man. And I wanted to spend a whole day there, but I had to go to an event, a company event, at 6 p.m. that night. So I'd gotten off work that morning and I came home, loaded up my stuff, and I headed straight to the island. And by the time I got down there, it was about 7:30, I think, where I got to marker 12. And then that's when I started walking. But I had to be back because I had to go somewhere by 6. So I couldn't spend that much time here like I wanted to. Because I was going to walk to a few of the other islands too. But the whole plan was to fly the drone, but it didn't happen. It's going to have to be left for another time. But yeah, beautiful. Tranquility, quiet, nobody around, just me by myself out there. There's no one around, period. You don't hear no boat motors, boats running, nothing. And when I get up to the island, it's pretty interesting because I find coyote tracks, deer tracks. I want to even say there's some raccoons. I don't know how a raccoon got all the way out there, but there's some raccoon tracks out there too, man. But you can tell nobody's been there in a boat because there's no prop cuts anywhere in that sand in that area. Look at that, it's clean. And even on the other side too, man, you can see. So this isn't a place that somebody normally comes out here and fishes. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Only way you're going to get to this close is by wading it and walking it at high tide. And then you got to catch the reds at the right time that they would be even back here. Because up here on this island, you can see there's a lot of little holes in the ground of the crabs, of the little sand crabs and little fiddler crabs and all that stuff. I mean, it's littered with them all around it. So I can imagine at a high tide, those reds would be working these edges trying to get those crabs, you know. But like I said, I don't know in the mindset of a redfish when it triggers it like, hey, this is a good time. Let's head over here and let's go get some crabs instead of eating mullet, shrimp, and shad and so on. You know what I mean? I don't know what triggers that to make them, because it's, other than tide, but I don't think they come up here all the time. It's only certain times of the year. So that's still a mystery to me. But yeah. So here we are. So we finally made it across there. A little bit over 2 miles. 2 miles over and over 2 miles over and over 2 miles back. About almost 5 miles is what it averaged out to when I checked it on Google Maps. Round trip. Beautiful. It's a unique place, guys. Like I say, we're very fortunate to have this beautiful resource to enjoy and to go out and enjoy it in our backyard. A lot of history here when it comes to geological history. That dates back, almost 5,000 years. And so, see, these islands here were not formed by the Army Corps of Engineers when they were digging the intercoastal waterway and those guts and stuff. These are naturally formed ones. These weren't made by the Army Corps of Engineers, like you see up and down the intercoastal waterway where all those spoil drops are, the spoil dumps. That's where that's all the mud and stuff where they dug that canal through there and they dumped it. These are natural and were made by the sand blowing off of South Padre Island sand and also the mud. So you see there's mud there. Also, they talk about how there's sediment here from the Arroyo Colorado mixed in these islands too. So even the sediment has made it all the way from the Arroyo Colorado out here too. And that's like 4 or 5 miles away, 6 miles away, whatever that is, across the bay there. So that's pretty interesting too. So you see those tracks, there's tracks of deer, there's tracks of coyote, there's a few tracks of a raccoon. That's about the only tracks that I saw signs of. But see all the holes in the ground there? Those are all those little crabs that those reds and black drum like eating. When the high water mark comes up and they come out, right now they're in their holes and they're waiting for the high water mark to come up, and then they'll come out and they'll start feeding too. And I don't know what triggers that in a drum's mind. Okay, hey, it's time to let's go eat those crabs. You know what I mean? I don't know how that works with them, how they process that. And they just know where to come and get them. But what I want to show you is what's really cool. You can actually see the tide running out here. I mean, literally running fast. It's a fast, aggressive, low tide pulling the water out. A lot of heavy gravity pull up here at the end of this point. Look, you'll start seeing it as I'm walking up here. The water's moving fast. It's still going out. So even when I was there, even though it was a low tide, it had been a low tide since 4 in the morning that day, it was still going out. It hadn't finished pulling all the water out yet. It was still doing it. And this is probably around, I don't know, 11 o'clock that I got there to this island. Let's see how there's no water there. It's all pulled out. And you'll get close up here. You'll see it still, the water's still being pulled. But look at the vegetation just out here, being able to survive. There's another island right across there. There's a cluster of them, little islands. And these are all naturally formed islands. These aren't ones that the Army Corps of Engineers formed. These were made naturally from the sand and sediment, from the sand from South Padre Island and the sediment from the Arroyo Colorado. Or pushed here. But see, look at the water moving. You see the foam? You see how the wind's blowing the foam? But look how the water is being pulled. Watch this. That's not wind on the water. That's tide. It's amazing to see that. See the water moving? Being pulled in one direction? Look at it. Look how it's going. See, it's being pulled. So the tide's still going out at 11 o'clock in the morning. It hasn't hit that bottom, the bottom of low tide. It hasn't hit it yet. It's still pulling tide. Look at that. Still draining that whole wind tidal flat of all the water between those islands is what it's doing. And these are big areas. Look how vast it is. Big area. But what you can see on these wind tidal flats, there is no vegetation in the water at all. So this is only going to be a place that the redfish would come up in here and it'd be at a high tide and an extreme high tide at that, and they'd be looking for the crabs and eating crabs. Other than that, they won't have any business coming up in here. Because the bait fish, there's nothing for the bait fish to eat up in here. Look at that. You can see the wind blowing on it, but then look at the tide. Look how it's just still pulling. It's all pulling it south, directly south. Pretty wild. It's incredible to see. And there's hardly any water there. You can walk all the way across there almost. If you wait a little bit, if I would have waited a little bit longer, it probably would have pulled all that water out, and it would have been just no water, and I could walk right across there. But this is Los Bancos de Medio that the subscriber was asking about fishing out there and how good the fishing is. Well, you're not going to get out here in a boat. I mean, you'd have to have a super, super high tide, like after a hurricane or something, man, to be out here. But you can come out here and walk out here. You can either go up so far, anchor your boat, get out, and walk through the water to get over here, or you can come from South Padre Island like I did. But the reds, this isn't a place that they just gonna stay and hang out, man. They may cross paths through here, but your timing would have to be impeccable to catch them at the right time. That would just be so hard to do. I would say it would just be luck of the draw if you did catch them back here. Because look at the floor. There's nothing here for them to eat other than crabs. There's no structure. You got to remember, reds like structure. They like to hide in that grass and ambush bait fish as they come across there. There's nowhere there for them to hide. You know what I mean? That's the only thing that they'd be feeding on if they were to come up here. But there's plenty of crustaceans, crabs that they can feed on in Rattlesnake Bay, at Bird Island, and, you know, in places, Green Island like that live there too, just like they live here. They don't have to come all the way out here. So how good the fishing would be, I don't know. I've never fished in between these islands. Where I broke down at, that was in the sand flats just west of this. It's the same area, but I'm just on the west side of the islands, on the sand side. That's where my boat broke down the last time, and I had to drag it all the way to almost Bird Island until those guys picked me up in that little scooter. But here we're going to walk out to the point here and check it out. Oh, I found some tar. Look at that, a big old chunk of oil tar. So if you guys don't know, like certain times of the year, usually in the summer times, we have such a thin layer on the underlayment of the seafloor in the Gulf of Mexico. Oil will bubble up to the surface, and it'll come in with the incoming tide to South Padre Island and to the beach. And that's when you'll see a bunch of tar up and down the beach and stuff, blobs of tar. That's just due to natural phenomenon. That's what that is. And I was surprised to find one all the way out here. There's one big chunk way out here on this island in these banks of De Medio. And also look what I found. I found marker number 4. I need to look that up. It's out here. So in one of the big storms that we had, I don't know if it was a hurricane or what, but if they're still looking to wonder what happened to marker number 4, well, here it is, baby. It's right here. It's up on the top of the island here. Midway up the island, sitting there. And there's a lot of crab holes. So I'm pointing at all the holes there. There's tons and tons of crab holes there. I mean, just tons of them way up above the water line. So that makes me wonder, how do they normally live? Because normally those kind of crabs live right at the water line. You know, they're out of water when it's low tide, and they're underwater when it's high tide, and then they come out and they do their business, and then they go back in when the tide changes. But these were way up on the bank, so I found that pretty interesting. Marker number 4, guys. That they were that high up there. So that's just interesting in itself. So now we're going to head back. Like I said, I had somewhere I had to be by 6 that evening, and it's already lunchtime. It's 12 o'clock. So I needed to get on the move, because I needed to get back, get to my truck, and then I got to drive all the way down the beach, get off the island, and come back up to Harlingen. And then I need to get home, get a shower, get changed, and then head on over there. And I barely made it on time. I think I was like 10 minutes late getting there. But look at that tide still going out. Look at the way the water is just dragging and just pulling it. Yeah. Pretty cool. Pretty neat. But yeah. So for it to be a good place to be fishing and all that stuff, I don't know. My 2 cents in here is, yeah, there possibly can be reds there, but it would be a like lightning strike, for you to catch them. Once in a lightning striking you, to be able to catch them out there like that, because it's just not a regular place that they're going to hang out, because there's no structure in the water, is what I'm saying. That just makes it not appealing to a redfish. That's what I'm trying to say. And my perspective of things, the way I fish and stuff. But if you go further and go past those banks, you're going to hit the sand flats. The sand flats are on the other side of the islands there. You just got to walk a little bit further. And then from the sand flats, they merge into the grass flats. You'll see the grass line. And then, of course, into the intercoastal waterway from there. The grass flats go right up to the edge of the intercoastal waterway. But this is an interesting area. It's worth seeing. I just wish I could have got aerial footage of it. But the wind was just blowing too much. And I wasn't going to put my drone up in that kind of wind. It just have to be left for another time. But it's worth seeing. Because I'm telling you, hardly anybody's been out here to this area. You can wade fish it, but you got to walk a long ways, and you're going to have to go past these islands before you're actually going to get on the fish. Now, it may be different if you walk north on South Powder Island and try some other spots over there. But there's mud flats, just like there's mud flats that run down the Texas continent side there by Arroyo City and down to Port Isabel. There's mud flats on the Powder Island side too. I don't think I've ever really clarified that. I always talk about the sand flats, and they're on the Powder Island side because they're closer to the Powder Island side than they are to the continent side. So that's why I never really tell you how it truly is. So how it truly is you got Powder Island, and you got mud flats, then you have sand flats, then you have grass flats, and then you have mud flats. That's how the lower Laguna Madre is laid out. But most of the time, the Padre Island mud flats are high and dry. If you saw in that video I did the Mini Pro 5 drone, I was in the mud flats south of this, which is way south of where I'm at here now. And you could see how the tide had gone out, and it was high and dry all out there. But when the incoming tide comes in, it gets water in it. So it's a tidal flat. It's a wind tidal flat is what it is. And they're very important to the ecology and to the making of the structure of the island. So they have their place. So my plan was going back to find my way back, because I needed to get back because I had an appointment to be somewhere. And then on top of that, you see how dark it is over there? It looks like it's going to pour down rain. So I didn't want to get caught out there in the rain. And my plan was I was just going to follow my tracks all the way back to my truck. Well, that worked out about halfway. When I got halfway out there, where the water got deeper, it had already washed away my tracks. I couldn't find it. But I had taken note when I had come originally. I didn't have a compass or a GPS on me. Well, I had my phone, but whatever. But how I did it was I just looked at the island before I left. When I was standing on Padre Island, I saw which island I wanted to go to at the banks, and I just made a straight beeline to that island. That's what I did. And so going back to come right out exactly where I had walked in, I just beelined it. I kept the island that I beelined to straight at my back, and it took me exactly right back where I walked in at. What you'll see here. I'm not going to film the whole thing. I'm going to just cut it off here and there until we get up there, because I don't want to waste your time for like another hour walking back, because it took like an hour and a half over there and an hour and a half back. Walking in this, because you got to slide your feet because it's real slick and slippery. And it doesn't look like it's slippery, but boy, let me tell you, it's all slippery there. Just like being on ice. It reminds me of being on ice with no skates. That's exactly what it's like. And you got to slide your feet and keep your balance. You know, if you pick them up, you can lose your balance and your feet will slip right out underneath you, and boom, you'll be on your back. And I didn't want to get wet, so I didn't want to get completely all wet. That is, but yeah, that's all I did. I used a landmark to get me over there and to get me back, and it worked out perfectly. So you can see the wind's still blowing 40 miles an hour. You can see my tracks right there. I'm tracing them back. I can only do that for so far, and then I can't even see it anymore. Because where the water got a little bit deeper, it had already washed away my tracks where I'd walked. As you can see, there's no way, no definitive way. So here I am. I'm back on the land. So I just skipped. I didn't want to waste your time with the complete walk back. So right back where I started, and that's how I did it. I used the point off the shore of the island, because it's higher than Padre Island, because you can't really tell, and that's how I navigated it. I navigated it off of that point, just a straight line to get back, and it took me right back there. But look how much water has gone out even more than when I walked in there. Because when I get over to this grass, you got to remember there was water all up in there. You see where that dark black mud is? That was all underwater when I first put in about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago. Or 3 hours ago, actually, because it was an hour and a half walk out there, hour and a half walk back. You know, hardest 2.5 miles out and 2.5 miles back that I've ever walked, because you can't regularly walk. You know what I mean? You're sliding your feet to keep your balance so you don't fall down. Wind's still ripping pretty good. You'll see once I get up to the grass. Look at the way that grass is blowing. 40 plus mile an hour, easy. And then you'll see the Gulf of Mexico. Boy, big old waves turned up. I'm surprised people aren't down there surfing, trying to catch those big waves, because it was relatively calm when I put in, which you'll see in the drone footage here at the end of the video. It was calm that I put in, and it's big change. Sand blowing everywhere, wind blowing, and the waves are up, pounding the bank, pounding the shoreline. And I found a raft too. I found a raft that floated up pretty neat. I put it in here too, a little makeshift raft that somebody made. Some expandofoam on the bottom, and a little wooden raft. So it makes me wonder, I don't know if they sailed up on that, or if they smuggled something up on that, or what, but it floated ashore there on the island. Ingenuity, things that people do, man. Shoot. I'm telling you, they got some stones to do that, man, if they floated in on that, because that's crazy. You'll see it here. I put it here at the end of this video. So anyway, this is what we were doing. Is I just wanted to show you this area. I wish I could have had the drone footage for it, because I didn't want to fly my drone originally. I have drone footage here on the island side going out there, but that was too far. I was over 2 miles, and I didn't want to fly my drone that far, because one, you're supposed to fly it within line of sight, and there's no way I'd see it that far. And then two, if I lost my signal, the drone would fall out of the sky, and I'd lose my drone too. And none of those were viable options. So the only viable option was for me to walk out there and then and then fly the drone from being in the area, so I could see it line of sight. But the wind was just too much, so it didn't happen, guys. I apologize for it. Rusty, I left him at the house because I didn't think he'd be up for this kind of trip. I think that would really give him a big shock and make him even more timid, to try to force him to come with me out there on that. So I wouldn't want to put him through this. He's not ready for something like this yet. He needs more confidence building. But I used to do this all the time back in my younger days. I used to wade fish everywhere. I used to walk everywhere, and wade fish all over the place. You know, and when I broke my leg back in 2017, my tibia plateau, my running days are over with. I don't run anymore. So that took care of that. But I can still walk. And this was a test for me to see if I still had the strength in my legs to do this. And I did, man. Not too bad. It was a good workout. I'm not as out of shape as I thought I was. You know. And plus, I'd been on my feet for 8 hours before that, too. Well, 9 hours, 9, 10 hours before that. All night, too. And then to come out here and do this. I worked all night before, and then I went straight into doing this, too. So yeah. So I can still get by. Even though I'm getting old, I can still physically do it. That's one thing they don't tell you about, man. You know, is growing old isn't easy. You'll find that out as you grow older. Once you hit your mid 40s, you don't recover as fast as you used to before that. I can remember back when I was young, I could stay up 4 or 5 days straight, no problem, no sleep. I can't do that anymore. Day, 2 tops, 2 days tops. And then I got to shut down and get some sleep. I used to drive, like when I drive to California, I could drive that straight, 24 hours. Just stop off for gas and keep going. You know, back in my younger days. Look at the wind blowing it. Beautiful, beautiful grasslands. We have beautiful grasslands down here on the island. If you've never taken the time to walk out here and enjoy this, it's really nice. Also, you see there, I took my pole and look what I put on there. I had my Man's Waker Texas Sunrise Classic. I was itching to throw that, man. Just in case if I did come across anything, I was itching to throw the old Man's Waker. That used to be the thing in the day, the original Waker there. But it didn't happen on this trip. It's got to wait for another time. We didn't see any fish at all, any reds at all. They weren't nowhere near there. But it was worth the walk. Getting this on video so I can get it posted. So it's there so people can see what it looks like in that area. The grasslands here and the dunes are just so beautiful. The processes that the island have put in place to preserve this are really looking up. It looks really great. So they're doing the right thing. I mean, just look at that. Beautiful. And like I say, if you've never been out here just to see this, it's worth going and visiting in the dunes and seeing the grasslands that we have on South Padre Island. And I even came across a few stuff still blooming, which I was surprised. There was some Indian blanket still blooming this late in the season. Usually that's a summertime bloomer, and it was blooming here, you know, this late in the fall. That really struck me kind of odd that it was still blooming there. Pretty wild. But usually you see it up and down the road between here and the King Ranch, and it's in the, and right before the summertime, late spring, early summer is when you see Indian blanket, and it just paints the entire sides of 77 beautiful reds and pinks colors, you know, fiery reds. But it's a native plant for here. So you'll see we came right back exactly where we were. Once we get across that grass line right there, you'll see my truck sitting right there, man, on the other side of that dune. So just always take your bearings. If you don't have a GPS on you, I know everybody uses GPS nowadays or a compass. I was always a big compass guy, take the reading. If you don't have either one of those, just use a landmark and use straight lines, and it'll always bring you back. Now, if it was at night, I would have been in trouble. That's when a compass or a GPS would come in handy. But in the daytime, as long as you can see the landmark, you can come right back to it. You know, right back to where you started, and not get lost. Because it is vast. It is a vast area out there, man. Because everything starts looking the same once you get out there on the water. It all looks the same everywhere. You know. But marker 12, guys, on South Padre Island there is where I where I went across to go to Los Bancos de en Medio on the Lower Laguna Madre. So I'm sure you can probably catch reds out there, but it's going to be like a, how should I say, you got all the stars and the moon have to line up in the sky if you're going to catch them there, because you saw what it looks like. Now on the west side, it's a different story. They're out there in those sand flats, but running across there or meandering around. But in that one, it's a pretty how should I say? You have better chance of lightning striking you. And you're catching the reds back there in that area. But hey, who am I to say that? I could be wrong, and there could be somebody that's watching this video like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. I catch them out there all the time. I fish in between those islands, and they're all over the place. Well, they weren't all over the place for me, man. I didn't see a fish one out there. You know, so, or even signs. But anyway, we're going to have to cut it off here. Rusty and me will see you guys out one of these days, drift fishing on the Lower Laguna Madre. Y'all have a good day, and thank you for watching. We appreciate every subscriber, and we want to give a big thanks. We're up to 560 subscribers, and thank you, all of you. Y'all have a good day.
Go get your toy. Get the red bear. Red bear. Go get red bear. Your toys.